Most people have never seen any of these, so I tracked down 10 forgotten 1950s war movies that are still awesome today. One of these got the US government so angry they banned the director from using tanks, uniforms, anything, and blacklisted the entire movie. Another one was so realistic people who'd lived through the war found it almost too hard to watch. And there's one where the real British spy actually appears on screen as himself. When Attack premiered at the Venice Film Festival, the reaction was instant. An actual US ambassador stormed out in protest. The Pentagon hated it so much, they blacklisted the film and refused to help in any way. No tanks, no uniforms, no soldiers, nothing. They wouldn't even let Robert Aldrich look at real combat footage. So he went out and just rented a couple of tanks on his own, used camera tricks to make it look like he had more. The movie's set in Belgium during the Battle of the Bulge. Jack Palance and Eddie Albert star, and both of them actually served in World War II for real. The irony here is that Eddie Albert plays Captain Cooney, this cowardly officer who's only got the job because he's buddies with a colonel played by Lee Marvin. But in real life, Albert was a genuine war hero. At Tarawa, he rescued more than 70 wounded Marines under heavy fire, got the Bronze Star for valor. And here he's playing the complete opposite. Palance is Lieutenant Costa, who leads a platoon Cooney sends into danger, then abandons. Costa begs for reinforcements, Cooney refuses, and Costa swears revenge. The tension builds until it's almost too much. Richard Jackal, who was there, said, "There were scenes of incredible tension, like Palance coming down the stairs to get Eddie Albert. We were all impressed, even in rehearsals. It was a heavy project." You've probably never even heard of The Enemy Below, but at the time it broke new ground. Instead of just making the Germans cardboard villains, it actually humanizes both sides. Robert Mitchum here plays an American destroyer captain hunting a German U-boat commanded by Kurt Jürgens. But the movie never turns the German officer into a cartoon bad guy. Kurt Jürgens literally said, "This was an important picture for me because it was the first film after the war in which a German officer was not interpreted as a freak." Visually, the movie still holds up. No fake backdrops, just real ships, real explosions, real depth charges going off right behind Mitchum. They even brought in a real former German U-boat sailor, Albert Beck, as a technical advisor, so the submarine scenes actually feel and look amazing. The ending might come off as cheesy now, but the anti-war message is still strong. Nobody talks about this one anymore, but back in 1951, Decision Before Dawn was up for Best Picture at the Oscars. It's set at the very end of World War II, and it's not your typical Allied hero story. The U.S. Army actually recruits German prisoners to send back behind enemy lines as spies. The main character is a young German medic who volunteers to work for the Americans, knowing full well that the Gestapo is out there hunting for traitors. What really sets this apart is where and how they filmed it. The crew went to post-war Germany right into bombed-out cities, used real ruins and war equipment. So if you watch it, you're seeing actual destruction, not just some sound stages in Hollywood. For Germans who lived through the war, it felt way too real, almost traumatizing. That's probably why nobody brings this movie up today. It just tells the story straight with all the mess that comes with it. That honesty is probably what cost it its legacy, but it's exactly what makes it worth tracking down. This is a spy movie that's actually true. The Man Who Never Was is about Operation Mincemeat, a real British plan to fool the Nazis before the Allies invaded Sicily. The Brits dressed up a dead body as a Royal Marine officer, planted fake invasion plans on him, and floated him to shore in Spain. The Germans completely fell for it, moved their troops away from Sicily, and gave the Allies exactly the opening they needed. The guy who planned the whole thing actually has a cameo in the movie. The script is adapted straight from his own book from 1953. There's no filler or big side stories here, just a sharp, tight thriller that's all about the operation. It's not a bloody movie, no big shootouts, but the tension and suspense hold up. Every part of the plan, every twist is right there. It's old-fashioned espionage that actually works. Anthony Mann is the guy you usually think of for epic westerns, but this is the one and only war movie he ever made. Men in War is set during the Korean War. Small unit of American soldiers gets trapped behind enemy lines, just trying to survive and reach safety at Hill 465. Robert Ryan plays Lieutenant Benson, Aldo Ray is Montana, and right from the start, these two can't stand each other. It's a slow burn, takes its time, but by the end you get a seriously intense payoff. What really makes it work is how much Mann focuses on the tension inside the group, not just the war itself. The movie's shot with sharp camera angles, really tight editing. Everything is meant to pull you in and make it feel as real as possible. It ended up influencing a bunch of later films, especially The Thin Red Line. This was one of those movies people thought was lost for years, but it finally got restored not too long ago, so if you get a chance, track it down. Everyone knows Nolan's Dunkirk, but there was another big one back in 1958, and surprisingly, it holds up pretty well. It's a completely different kind of film. This one splits the story in two. First, you've got a group of British soldiers led by John Mills as Corporal Tubby Benz. They're stuck behind enemy lines in France, fighting to get to the beach at Dunkirk for evacuation. At the same time, back in England, you've got Bernard Lee as Charles Foreman, a reporter trying to convince people how serious things really are and why they should get involved. This was a massive production for its time. Michael Balcon, the producer, said it was literally the biggest thing he ever worked on, and he'd been around forever. Their gamble paid off. The movie became the second highest grossing film in the UK that year. Definitely worth a look if you want to see how they tackled Dunkirk long before the IMAX era. The Young Lions gave us a war movie with a cast that barely needs an introduction. Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift, and Dean Martin. 3 soldiers, 3 storylines, all set during World War II, all from completely different angles. Brando plays a German officer who gets more and more disillusioned with the Nazi cause as the story goes on. Montgomery Clift is a Jewish-American soldier fighting both the Nazis and anti-Semitism from his own side in the U.S. Army. And Dean Martin is a nightclub singer who gets drafted, doesn't want to fight, but gets thrown into the middle of it anyway. The movie jumps between their stories, eventually pulling everything together in bombed-out Germany. Marlon Brando is easily the best part here, and what's funny to me is that he actually hated playing this character. He was furious with 20th Century Fox for sanitizing his Nazi role, making the guy way too sympathetic just so they wouldn't upset West Germany during Cold War politics. Brando even tried to rewrite a lot of his own dialogue, but the studio cut most of it, and for him this was the last straw. He swore off letting studios tell him how to act after this one. Before he was a legend, Samuel Fuller fought in World War II himself, so when he made Fixed Bayonets, all that real-life experience ended up on screen. This is one of his early movies set during the Korean War. It's about a platoon left behind as a rear guard during a dangerous retreat through the mountains. They know their odds are bad, and most of the movie is just a super tense survival story. Fuller shot it on a shoestring budget, less than $1 million, and filmed nearly all of it on a single soundstage covered in crushed marble to look like snow. The sergeant is played by Gene Evans, who wasn't even an actor at the time. Fuller picked him because he'd actually served in the war. Fuller was all about realism. The studio even had to interfere and make him tone it down to fit the Hollywood production code. Even so, veterans really connected with the movie. The U.S. Army actually used clips from Fixed Bayonets to help train soldiers, not for fighting, but to get them ready mentally for what rear guard duty really means. Everyone knows The Great Escape, but before that there was The Wooden Horse, also based on a real breakout from the very same camp. This one's about 3 British prisoners who pulled off a pretty genius escape. Every day they'd haul a big wooden vaulting horse into the prison yard, pretend to exercise on it, and meanwhile someone would be hidden inside digging a tunnel right underneath. They kept that up for months, inch by inch, until they finally broke out. Americans didn't really go for it. Box office was just $150,000 in the US. The distributors tried to sell it as a rollicking adventure, but that backfired because the film is nothing like that. It's low-key, almost like a documentary. Veterans who were actually in camps like this said, "The Wooden Horse was the only movie that actually showed what escape was really like, how boring and exhausting it could get, and how much patience you needed to pull it off. It's not a big action movie, but if you want something that feels real, it's worth seeing. The Desert Fox was a big risk for Hollywood at the time. James Mason stars as Erwin Rommel, the German general who tried to assassinate Hitler. This was one of the first American movies that dared to show a Nazi as a complicated, even sympathetic person. Rommel's portrayed as an honorable soldier trapped by circumstances, just trying to do his job. Fox was nervous about how this would go over, especially in America, but audiences, especially veterans, actually liked it. Rommel had a reputation as a brilliant tactician, and people responded to that. In the UK, though, it was a different story. British vets groups protested outside theaters, angry that the movie was too easy on Rommel. Still, it made over $2 million at the box office, which was pretty solid for a war movie back then. It did so well in the US, Fox went ahead and made a follow-up called The Desert Rats, this time focusing more on the Allies and making Rommel a less sympathetic figure.